What happens when your DM doesn't know much about sailors? Let me describe the situation. This was my first in-person D&D experience, and it was a complete nightmare. So I started a new game with 5 players, plus the DM. I was the only player with any tabletop experience, Roll20, but I was happy to share my love of the game. My girlfriend was also playing for the first time, and one of the players was the DM's girlfriend. I was friends/co-workers with everyone but the DM. The DM told us that it would be a D&D 5e campaign with some light homebrew changes to make role-playing more fun, in a sandbox campaign. Roleplay and combat would be balanced. At session 0, he refused to help anyone develop characters, and sighed heavily whenever he was asked questions. I got the newbies through the process and made a balanced party, and handed over the character sheets. The DM then turned around and said, "Here's your real character sheets. D&D has too many rules and is too boring, so I'm adding in rules for Magic the Gathering." Our new sheets were 3 pages long and detailed a complex set of custom magic spells with a token system to cast them. Some of the spells literally stated that anything you can describe happening will happen. So here I am with my level 1 barbarian who now had access to 20 homebrewed spells that were more powerful than even some high-level spells in D&D. We stared baffled at the sheets until the DM told us, "Go home and study. We'll meet back for session 1. Obviously, this was a huge red flag, and not the kind of game I was hoping to play. But the DM stated he wouldn't play with 3 players, so if my girlfriend and I stopped, it would end the game. I felt obligated to try to make it work for my friends. We played 6 nightmare 3-hour sessions. I'll try to summarize all the craziness as best as I can. The DM and his girlfriend began bringing their young 4 to 5-year-old daughter who had a severe speech impediment. She found D&D extremely boring and was constantly disruptive. She was sweet, but her boredom made her distracting. They didn't bring toys or an iPad or anything, so she would sit and stare at us or run around the table. Because of her speech impediment, I could not understand her to interact with her and help. The DM refused to find a sitter, so she came to most of the sessions. The DM's favorite part of the game was puzzles. He would design elaborate, complex machines for us to solve without visual aids. Solutions usually involved gripping and manipulating objects in a very specific way and specific order. For example, the second of 4 parts to solve a puzzle was to grip a metal bar sticking out of a machine and rotate it counterclockwise while applying pressure downwards. The DM would give no input and would just say, "That didn't work," dozens of times. We literally spent 2 full sessions completely stuck on the same puzzle while an NPC taunted us. We only fought an enemy once in the entire campaign, Session 5, after we begged for a fight. My barbarian attacked with a sword, and the DM got mad that I didn't use any of my spells, and made my attacks miss. The role-playing was complicated and involved multiple dimensions, a whirlwind of locations and people. It was a little hard for me to keep track of the plot as a veteran sci-fi fan, and the newer players found the story confusing and intimidating. Most NPCs were role-played to be snobby, condescending, and better than the PCs in every way. Over time, the DM became progressively obsessed with my girlfriend's character, an Aasimar. He constantly described her angelic features with much more detail than anything else. He gave her special powers and went out of his way to protect her character in role-playing situations. He made sure that her character was integral to the plot, so she was the main character. He even made a Blender 3D model of her character. Note, he didn't model anyone else's. My girlfriend and the DM's girlfriend both expressed that they felt very uncomfortable with this level of attention. He finally toned it down around session 5. The DM would write up long notes, 3+ pages single-spaced, in between sessions to summarize what happened. I actually read these notes and noticed that he would change what actually happened during gameplay to better match his story. Many changes were so significant that he would get upset if our role-playing matched previous sessions instead of his changes. The DM attached an NPC to our party to railroad the story. This character was stronger, smarter, richer, everything etc. than our characters, and got special privileges. When we ditched this NPC and expressed our concerns about it, he waited a session and then added a replacement. The new DM PC was a ship captain controlling an interdimensional ship, and we needed him for the ship to work. The DM began making us go to brothels to speak with NPCs, and introduced new NPCs that loved to forcefully have their way with women. We, as a table of players, expressed discomfort at role-playing with people that were so open about this. We asked if he could tone it down. For reference, I was the only male player, so I tried to explain to him and said, "Look dude, you're creeping everyone out." But that just made the DM double down. In the final session we played, he insisted that we needed to hire a crew of sailors to man the ship. He then said the following: "You have to hire these kind of NPCs because all sailors love to forcefully have their way with women." We stared back in stunned silence. Shortly after that, his girlfriend complained about yet another puzzle where she didn't rotate a torch 45 degrees to the right and push it in to open a hidden door after wrestling with it for 5 minutes, describing every way of pushing the torch except the correct way. The DM exploded at her, and they had a giant screaming fight across the table, talking about this puzzle. I grabbed my girlfriend and took this as an opportunity to leave and never returned. The game fell apart without us. As a parting shot, the DM messaged me and said, "I'm quitting tabletop gaming because you forever spoiled it for me by ruining my perfect story that I've been writing for years." Good riddance. After leaving, I beat myself up for not quitting sooner. I kept hoping my polite suggestions would be heard and that the game would improve. I felt a social pressure that I've never felt before to continue the game, but I let it go on for way too long. I learned a lot from this experience. I learned that a bad game is worse than no game. I won't feel pressured to keep doing something I hate for my friend's sake ever again. I was afraid that quitting would leave a bad taste for D&D for my girlfriend, but she left frustrated and eager to play a good game. It felt cathartic to talk about this ordeal I went through a few years ago. I'm going to start a new campaign soon whenever I get a chance. Rarely do we see a DM check so many bad DM boxes. Sure, you have the storybook DM, the DM who plays favorites, the DM who only wants homebrew, and then the all too common inappropriate DM. But rarely do you have such an occasion where the DM is all of them. Remember, when your gut tells you to go, don't let peer pressure tell you no. What do you all think about this situation?